The Denver Broncos are being seriously underestimated heading into their matchup against the Buffalo Bills. Odds makers have them as heavy underdogs, 8.5 points to be exact. But when you break it down, the numbers don't lie. Bo Nix has quietly outperformed Josh Allen in key areas. Denver's defense is shutting teams down, and momentum is clearly on their side. So why is no one talking about the Broncos pulling off a massive upset? There's a lot to unpack here. Buffalo's defensive struggles, Bo Nix's surprising efficiency, and why Sean Payton's squad might be the hungriest team in football right now. Let's break it all down and see why this game might not be the mismatch people are expecting. Along with other things, we have bad news for Broncos fans too. What's up, buddies? Welcome back. If you are new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We cover all AFC West news here on this channel. The Bills were supposed to be in a rebuilding year. They lost their best safety, Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs. Then they tried to fill those gaps by adding Amari Cooper, a receiver who's past his prime. Remember his time with the Raiders? He's bounced around the league since then and hasn't been the kind of player that makes defenses worry. And it's not like Cooper would be facing just any defense. Pat Surtain is one of the best corners in the league. He's already shut down some of the top receivers this year, including Jamar Chase. Cooper just doesn't look like the kind of threat who could give Surtain much trouble. Now, it seems Cooper might miss the game entirely. He hasn't been back at practice yet, and while the details aren't clear, it sounds serious since the team is taking it day by day. Of course, hoping everything's okay with him, but missing practice this late in the week, especially with a tough defense like Denver's coming up, could be a big problem for Buffalo. When you break down how this defense has handled top receivers, it feels like Denver might have a real shot in this one. The Denver Broncos already felt like they had a good shot in this matchup, and now it feels even better about it. The Buffalo Bills are coming into this game with a ton of confidence, acting like they've got the league MVP in Josh Allen, and sure, he's a great player. But when you really break it down, how different has he actually been from Bo Nix this season? Everyone's acting like it's obvious who you'd rather have, Josh Allen over Bo Nix. But when you strip away the names and just compare the numbers, it's surprising. Bo Nix has thrown for more yards, more touchdowns, and has even run for more touchdowns than Allen. Yet somehow, Josh Allen is treated like the clear MVP. If you look at some of the other top quarterbacks Denver has faced this year, there's a strong case that they've gone up against tougher competition than Allen. Joe Burrow? More touchdowns, more yardage, and it took overtime for him to edge out Bo Nix. Baker Mayfield? Denver dominated him. Lamar Jackson? Sure, he beat Denver, but that was the only loss by more than a touchdown all season. The fact that the Broncos are considered 8.5-point underdogs feels flat out disrespectful when you see how competitive they've been. They've played Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers, both having solid statistical years. They've also faced Justin Herbert twice, and both those games came down to the wire. Even when people point out Allen's touchdowns as his standout stat, Bo Nix has still outperformed him in both total yards and passing touchdowns. Bo Nix completed 66.3% of his passes, more than Allen's 64.4%, proving his efficiency in the passing game. When it comes to moving the ball through the air, Nix also threw for an impressive 3,775 yards, edging out Allen's 3,731 yards. And touchdowns. Bo Nix delivered 29 passing touchdowns compared to Allen's 28, showing his ability to finish drives and capitalize in the red zone. And yes, there's been criticism about Bo Nix's interceptions, people calling him Bo Picks. But how many of those turnovers really tell the full story? I can think of at least 2 of Bo Nix's interceptions that came on Hail Mary's attempts at the end of the game, just trying to make something happen. Most of his other interceptions, especially after the first few weeks, were tipped passes, plays that weren't even his fault. Sean Payton even came out and took the blame, saying those mistakes were on him, not Bo Nix. When you look at it that way, there really isn't this massive gap between Bo Nix and Josh Allen. I know that might sound like a total homer take, but the numbers back it up. The data speaks for itself. Josh Allen shouldn't be running away with the MVP conversation. Honestly, Lamar Jackson feels like a much scarier quarterback to face than Allen, especially now that Buffalo might be without their only true WR1. Ask the average football fan to name a Bills wide receiver outside of Amari Cooper, and they'd probably struggle. Maybe some could name their rookie, Keon Coleman, but even his main storyline was how the Bills passed on Xavier Worthy and let the Chiefs grab him instead. Coleman hasn't exactly been making headlines as a difference maker. When you break down Buffalo's wins this season game by game, the record looks impressive at first glance. But where's that one win that makes you say, wow, the Broncos could never match that? They barely got past the Cardinals, who aren't even playoff contenders. They squeaked by the Dolphins in a game where Tua Tagovailoa played the whole way and still only won by a field goal. They struggled against the Jets, a team the Broncos handled better. Even their win against the Lions came with Detroit missing key players, yet the Lions still dropped 42 points on them. And then there's the Patriots game. The Patriots, easily one of the worst teams in football right now, nearly beat Buffalo when they were at full strength. Honestly, the only win that really stands out is their victory over the Chiefs. But let's be real, that felt like Buffalo's version of the Super Bowl. It's hard to find another win on their schedule that screams dominant. When you really break this down, sure, most people will still take Josh Allen over Bo Nix right now, but the gap between them isn't as big as people make it seem. And when you compare defenses, it's no contest. The Broncos' defense has been stronger this season. They rank in the top 3 in the league for points allowed, averaging just 18 points per game. Meanwhile, Buffalo gives up about 4 points more per game and allows significantly more yardage. The Broncos' defense is in the top 10 for yards allowed, while you have to scroll way further down to find Buffalo on that list. Then there's the question of who else Buffalo has outside of Josh Allen. Their next best weapon? Probably James Cook. Decent, sure, but he's the second best Cook brother at running back. Then there's Von Miller, but let's be honest, we've already seen his peak. And this week, he'll be facing Quinn Miners, one of the best guards in the league, who got snubbed for the Pro Bowl. You can bet he's fired up to make a statement and has a real shot at shutting Miller down. It's strength against strength, and Denver has the tools to hold their own. And if we're talking coaching, would you rather have Sean McDermott, who's been average in the playoffs and hasn't gotten it done despite coaching Josh Allen, or Sean Payton? Payton took the Saints, a team that was a joke before he arrived, and led them to a Super Bowl while revitalizing an entire city. And let's not forget, he's taken this Denver team from 5 wins to playoff contention despite dealing with the deadest cap space in NFL history. And it's not just me saying this. Chiefs cornerback Josh Williams was on the Kadam show recently, and even he backed the Broncos, saying they could shock the world against Buffalo. Even the Broncos got some good news before this must-win game against the Buffalo Bills. Sean Payton has been vocal about his frustrations with penalties this season, especially how they've hurt the team. Denver has been one of the most penalized teams by yardage in the league, and that's been a problem in critical moments. But there's a break this week. The refereeing crew assigned to the game is known for calling the fewest penalties in the league. That could be a game changer. This officiating crew isn't known for flagging those small ticky-tack fouls, which means Denver's physical style, especially with Pat Surtain in the secondary, can stay aggressive without constant flags slowing them down. Along with good news and a favorable position against the Bills, there is bad news that can hurt the Broncos in the future. There's growing concern that defensive coordinator Vance Joseph could be on his way out. He's turned to defense with just one first-rounder, Pat Surtain, into one of the best units in the league, breaking sack records and possibly leading Nick Bonitto into the sack leader conversation. But with Denver's defensive success, other teams are noticing. The Jets have officially requested to interview Joseph for their head coaching vacancy, and there are rumors the Bears are interested too. Losing Joseph would be a blow, no doubt. But there's a silver lining here. If he lands a head coaching job, Denver would receive 2 third-round compensatory picks under the NFL's minority hiring rule. And Sean Payton has already been planning for situations like this, bringing in Jim Leonhard, a respected defensive mind, as the current defensive backs coach. Leonhard could easily step into the coordinator role if needed. So the Bills might feel confident, sure. They're probably thinking they have Denver figured out. But the truth? It took a last-second field goal for them to beat the Broncos before. Since then, we've seen Bo Nix go toe-to-toe with Joe Burrow, Aaron Rodgers, and Patrick Mahomes. This is a way better matchup than people are making it sound. So, with all that said, the Broncos clearly have the tools to make this game competitive, maybe even pull off a season-defining upset. They've got momentum, a defense that's playing lights out, and a quarterback quietly outperforming some of the league's biggest names. But here's the big question. Are the Broncos truly being overlooked, or is there something about Buffalo we're not seeing? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Denver has what it takes to shock the football world, or are the odds makers right? Let's hear it.